1976 explains your VA percentage. One sentence went into the Federal Register on the 18th of March that year, and it became part of the rules the VA rates by. The sentence is short, and money never comes up in it. No condition gets named anywhere either. Veterans are sitting at home tonight who have never questioned their VA percentage. The reason it came out that way has very little to do with how bad the injury actually is. Every rating decision since that morning has passed through the line, and yours passed through it too. That sounds big coming from a stranger, and nobody has to trust me on it. The regulation is public, it lives on a government page, and I have it open here. Section 4.2 of Title 38, called Interpretation of Examination Reports. Read the opening line with me. Different examiners at different times will not describe a disability in identical language. Government writing that down in its own rule book means two doctors looking at one veteran will put different words on paper. Further along, the rating specialist gets told to weigh those words against the whole recorded history and build one consistent picture. Now to the part worth staying for. Somewhere in your file there is a report. A few pages of typed words about your back, your hearing, whatever the VA had you claim. A stranger wrote it after less time with you than your mailman spends on your street. Your rating was built on that report. You have almost certainly never read it, and a single form puts a copy into your hands free without hiring anybody. The name of that form comes before the end, along with the page it sits on. I keep it plain here because a rule you cannot follow is a rule that costs you money. Subscribe to this channel and the next change will not slip past you. Now let me deal with the thing most men believe, because I believed it too for a long time. Most of us assume the VA looks at your body, decides how damaged it is, and hands over a percentage to match. That picture is wrong on both counts. Nobody there sees your body. Ratings move in steps of 10, from 0 up to 100, and each step is a different amount of money every month. Whoever picks your step at the VA works from paper in a building you have never been inside. What reaches him is a description. Thorough words make a thorough file, thin words make a thin VA file, and thin files produce low numbers. The injury sitting in your leg gets no vote. Only the description of it does. Two men with the same knee can land far apart on the VA schedule, purely on who wrote them up. Take out the letter that scheduled your exam while you listen, because the date on it is the day all of this happened. Think back to the appointment itself, because plenty of men walk in with the wrong idea. A letter arrives, you drive over, somebody in a white coat asks questions for a while, presses on a joint, and sends you home. It feels like a doctor visit, and it has all the furniture of one. Treatment is not the word the VA uses for it, and never has been. This video covers one rule. There are a lot more of them, and every one of them works the same quiet way. The whole list went into the Unclaimed Money Playbook for Veterans with a family guide alongside it in the same plain English I use here. 65 pages, no legal talk, and the link is down below. Watching on the TV set, point your phone camera at the code on the screen. Back to the paperwork in your own drawer. Open the VA page about claim exams yourself tonight. You will find this written out in the open, and the page is on screen now. The line sits about halfway down. The provider will not treat you for any illness or injury, give you referrals to other providers, or prescribe medicine. The reason is printed right underneath. That exam exists to gather information which helps them decide your claim. Nothing about making you feel better appears anywhere on the page. That page also describes what the provider may do while you are there. A basic physical exam may happen, and the page adds that this may or may not include physical contact. Read that line twice. An appointment that decides your money can legally happen without anybody laying a hand on you. Touch was never what the visit is for. The writing that comes afterward is. The same government page also names the form he fills in. A disability benefits questionnaire, they call it. There is one for each condition you are claiming, and the examiner works through it while you sit there. The questions come pre-written. He is not deciding what matters about your knee, because somebody else decided that years ago, and his job is filling in boxes. So a VA claim exam is no conversation about how you are doing. Somebody is transcribing you into a set of boxes, and those boxes travel onward to the person who picks your percentage. A man says he was fine that morning, or that he manages well enough, and nothing about it evaporates. It lands in a box. Check what the VA itself tells you to do before you go. Wear comfortable clothes so you can move freely during the exam, that page advises. That is sensible enough advice. Now look at what it implies. Moving freely is what gets observed, and what gets observed gets written. Most men prepare for the opposite: a shower, the good shirt, something for the pain an hour beforehand. Pride is not a flaw in a man, but on that one morning it walks into the room alongside him and ends up on the page. One more line lives in that 1976 regulation, and nobody ever quotes it. If a diagnosis is not supported by the findings on the report, the rating board must return it as inadequate. And the same goes when the report does not contain sufficient detail. Read section 4.2 yourself tonight, and both lines sit on the same short page. Chew on that for a moment. The rules do not treat the report as the final word. They tell the office to send it back when it is too thin to rate from. 50 years that instruction has sat in federal regulation. The man it protects almost never hears about it because he has never seen the report and has no way to judge whether it was thin. Here comes the turn, and the turn is why I wanted to make this one. Nobody sealed that report, and it was never meant to be a secret. The thing is a record about you, and you are allowed to have a copy. The VA says so on its own page, and it spells out exactly how. People keep telling me a veteran can never get hold of it. This next page says otherwise, and 2 lines do the work. Read the first one with me. You will need to request a copy of the final exam report, and you cannot get the results at your exam or directly from the provider. The VA provider who wrote it will not hand it over on the day, and he is following the rule, not being awkward. Now the next line, which carries the weight. To request a copy of the exam report, you fill out a Freedom of Information Act or Privacy Act request. Its number reads 210206. 3 routes are listed for sending it. The whole thing can be done online. Printing and mailing it to the intake center works, and so does walking it into a regional office. That is the entire gate, 1 form, 3 routes, and the words "a stranger wrote about you" come back in the mail. A stamp and an afternoon is the whole cost of finding out. Most veterans go their whole lives without ever asking the VA for it. Think about the man who never sends for it. A decision letter lands in his mailbox with a percentage on it and almost nothing about the words behind it. The VA page offers him a link to check his claim status online, and status is what he watches because status moves. His report never moves. A man can retire and watch his grandchildren grow up while the paragraph deciding his money has not changed since a Tuesday afternoon he barely remembers. When that VA report arrives, the diagnosis is not what you are after. Read it instead for the parts of your week that are missing. The bad mornings, the things you quietly stop doing. Check whether he wrote down that your condition comes and goes, or only the good hour he had with you. 3 lines are often enough, and the comparison takes 1 evening at your own table. Picture a truck driver from 1972 with a ruined back. The VA rates him at 30%, and he lives with it for 11 years, assuming the number is a medical fact about his spine. Then his daughter talks him into sending the VA a request for that report. It arrives, and in it he reads 3 lines he does not recognize. The mornings he cannot get out of bed are not in there. Neither are the 2 weeks last winter when he could not drive. Nothing about flare-ups at all, because on exam day he had a good hour and he said so. Go and look for the words "comes and goes" in your own report before you decide anything. 2 weeks of a bad winter never reached the page, and that was the whole difference. Nobody was lied to that day. He was raised not to complain, and it cost him more than a decade of a number that did not describe his life. Put the arithmetic beside that because the gap is not small. On the VA rate table in force right now, 30% pays a veteran with no dependents a little over $500 each month. 70% pays that same man a little over $1,800. 2 rows of 1 table and most of a mortgage payment sitting between them. Whether that man was owed more, I do not know. Open the VA rate table tonight and read those 2 rows yourself, because what a description is worth stops being abstract there. So who does reading that report help the most? Honestly, most men listening, though not every VA file equally. The report matters least if your condition looks identical on any given day. A missing finger or a fused joint leaves the description almost no room to drift. Where it earns its keep is with anything that comes and goes. Bad backs do exactly that, and so do ringing ears, sleep, breathing, knees, and nerves. Only one kind of day may have reached the VA page about you. Now let me be straight about who this does not help. If a claim was never filed, nothing sits in your file to send for, because no exam was ever ordered. Plenty of claims never get an exam at all, and the VA states that plainly in its own guidance. When the medical evidence they hold is enough to decide, they rate from what is there and skip the appointment. Reading your report will not move a percentage by itself either. Read it to see whether the words that set your number match the life you actually live. When they match, you can stop wondering, and that is worth something on its own. A mismatch is harder to sit with, but knowing beats guessing. A second half to this went up on this channel a while back. The years eventually stopped the VA from lowering a rating at all, and that clock runs from a date already in your file. If nobody has ever checked whether you passed it, that one is worth your time, and I will put a card there for it. Send for the report first, then put your award letter beside it at the table and see whether the two describe one man. 3 pieces of paper carry this whole thing. The VA regulation from 1976 that admits examiners describe one man in different words, the questionnaire the examiner filled in while you sat there, and the report that came out the other end, which you have every right to read and probably never have. Everything here is general information about rules the government has published. Take it as that and nothing more, because advice about your own claim comes from people who have your file in front of them. No part of this promises an outcome on your VA claim. Every VA page I use today is linked below. If any of this helped, share it with somebody you know. Chances are he never heard about it either. Sonny Boone.